For the past few days, I replaced my laptop with a VR headset. You see, the new VR goggles from Meta, the Meta Quest Pro, now have color cameras on them, so you can actually see your surroundings and get an augmented reality experience. And this makes things more interesting. You might have seen Marques Brownlee pointed out that you could connect a desktop or a laptop wirelessly, and instead of having one small laptop display, you could have 3 massive displays surrounding your head using this headset. So that got me wondering, how practical is this? Could you use it at work? Could you use it in a small apartment? Or perhaps could you use it while traveling, on a plane or in a coffee shop? Well, I really wanted to find out. This was so interesting to me, so I ordered a Meta Quest Pro and decided to use it instead of my usual laptop display to see just how good it actually was. Now, let's start off with some of the concerns I had before starting and what it was actually like when I actually used it. So starting off, the first one was the battery life. This has a pretty well-known 1.5 to 2 hour battery life, which at first I thought, that's not gonna be good for a work day. But the truth is, you don't actually need to worry about the battery life when you're working, because while you're sitting still, you can charge it by USB Type-C on the side. You don't need the usual charging dock, so you can wear these while they're plugged in and the battery never dies. Secondly, I was worried a little bit about the camera quality and the lag in either the camera or in the displays. And so I'm kind of going through those one at a time. There was really not any significant lag in the cameras, or at least not anything that bothered me. Keep in mind, when you're working on a laptop, you're not like moving around a lot, so movement, like lag's not really that relevant. One issue though was that you can't really see your keyboard. So while the camera was good enough to see your surroundings and know like when somebody was walking over to you or whatever's going on in the room, it wasn't good enough to see the keys on the keyboard. Like you can look at them and you can tell that they're there, but you can't really see what all the keys are. Now most people are pretty good at typing and I already know where all the letters are. I type without looking, but it turns out that I have no idea where the special characters are. I know they're across the top, but I guess I didn't realize I don't know where like the @ symbol is or % symbol. So I found myself just guessing across the board until I got the one I wanted. I think that this is something that eventually they need to have a way to map out your keyboard at least, because another thing is using the Workspace app, you can either see your surroundings, which is nice, or you can go to a different virtual workspace. So you can go to like a lakeside office or something. And I find that I like this better because there's fewer distractions and most importantly, it's easier on your eyes. But in that situation, you can't see your laptop keyboard at all. And so you're just typing on a table. It looks and feels a little bit strange. And so I really think that what Meta needs to do is map out your keyboard and show it in front of you. So when you're typing, you at least kind of know like what's going on. Another additional little quirk here is that I was absolutely terrified of spilling things on my laptop. In the pass-through mode, I could mostly see things, but when I was in a virtual workspace, I never had my water anywhere near my laptop because I usually have water right here. I had that sitting on the ground because I did not want to destroy my laptop from moving my arm and not realizing it's there. Now, talking about the displays themselves, like the laptop displays in the VR space, the lag there wasn't really bad. I was actually very impressed. Obviously, it's dependent on your internet speed. I found a little bit of lag with mouse movement. Sometimes videos lag a little bit at first, but I feel like over time you either get used to it or the lag was really not that bad for the video. And overall, I was pretty impressed by how smooth everything really was. By the way, I haven't actually mentioned this yet. For anyone who wants to try this, I was using the Meta Workspaces app, which I found was super easy to use. It's very well integrated. It was free to use. And so it worked with a Mac or a Windows laptop with absolutely no problem. There are other apps out there like Remote Desktop and other ones that you have to pay for. Don't bother, I tried them. They were really laggy, they really didn't work well, and the Meta Workspace app was light years ahead of them. So those were my preconceived concerns and initial reactions when I first started using it with my laptop. So far, so good. Overall, like really not many issues. None of them were deal breakers, and instead, there was plenty to like about this setup. First of all, you had no screen glare from lights or windows around you. Secondly, you had really no distractions. People kind of looked like faceless blobs and you could kind of identify who people were, but it wasn't going to be a distraction. Additionally, surroundings were less interesting and less clear than your display, so I found I never was just looking around at my desk. And third, possibly most important here, is that you can't really use your phone. Like looking at other displays through the pass-through mode here was absolutely terrible, so my phone was never a distraction. But moving on, Then another benefit was that it really did work well, like the software side of it worked really well. So having multiple monitors, they really did act as if they were separate monitors on my MacBook. So for example, extensions like Magnet, which allows me to snap windows to the left or the right side, worked in the virtual displays as well. And then the fourth one here is that instead of turning your head, you can actually turn the monitors. I didn't realize this right away because I was looking around at 3 different monitors. It is a little bit annoying if you have to turn over here for a massive monitor, and instead you could just use your fingers and click or pinch at each one of them, and that'll bring them into the middle. So really a cool thing, cool way to have the hand gestures there. Take some practice. It wasn't really the smoothest experience, but once you get used to it, I thought it was a little bit more useful than having Alt-Tab on your laptop. Oh, and one other thing, the 360 audio on here, I know I'm not a fan of 360 audio, but in this situation, it was actually really cool. If you're watching a video and you look over here, it was really cool that the video is still playing now in your right ear, so it felt like it was a little bit more immersive, as if it were really on the display in front of you. But that leads us into the first drawback. So one little issue here is that it only works when the audio is in front of you. So if I play audio on a screen to my right, and I look over to my right, then it's playing in my left ear. So it always plays audio as if it were from directly in front of you, regardless of where the display actually is. I wish I could say that was the worst of the issues I faced, but it definitely wasn't. There's a couple that were pretty minor and a couple that were really, really major. But starting off with the minor ones, hand control gestures didn't exist for your computer. That's kind of to be expected since this is so new, but eventually I would love to see the ability to use your hands to scroll and interact with your computer rather than just interacting with the little menu that Meta owns in front of you. Additionally, I really think you need to wear earbuds. While the speakers are passable and they work if you're watching like a tutorial maybe, if you're watching any video or podcast or listening to music, especially listening to music, I really recommend getting earbuds and using them with these. It's a lot better. But we're getting into some even bigger drawbacks. This thing is definitely really heavy. I know it's more balanced now, and so it's a lot more comfortable. Like my head did not hurt. It didn't really feel like any kind of I don't know. I could wear it for a while and it wasn't a problem, but my neck was definitely getting more strained. Like it's an extra 1.5 or almost 2 pounds on your head. So if you're not sitting perfectly upright, or even if you are, it's a lot of extra strain on your neck. And that leads us into the final and by far the most significant drawback. You could probably guess it. It's the only thing I really haven't mentioned yet, and that's the display quality. So the resolution on here, 1800 by 1920, is definitely great. It's fantastic for Beat Saber, but for multiple displays where you're trying to read text, it just doesn't cut it. I really look forward to the day when we can have 5K displays on here or something a little bit better than basically 1080p, because if you break this down and you say, all right, 1800 by 1920, and I have a display in front of me, it's really kind of the equivalent of a 720p display, more like a 720p television that's sitting right in front of you. So it's really kind of hard to read things. I ended up zooming in my browser tabs to about 200%, and that helped a lot. But keep in mind, a laptop display like my MacBook Pro is about 4K, and I'm using it a lot further away and a lot smaller. So I'm used to seeing a lot better resolution than you're getting on this. Now, for reference, one of the days when I was using this headset, I just logged as I was using it. So I started using it. 20 minutes later, I found that I was loosening the fit, kind of adjusting it. Like I said, once you found a comfortable fit, it didn't feel too bad on my head. And the neck strain, it was there at the end of the day, but it wasn't, if you have good posture, it really wasn't that bad. At 45 minutes, that's where my eyes started to hurt. I felt like I was looking at a 2005 CRT. It really had the same kind of resolution, the same harsh brightness and overall feel in my eyes, and the only way I could continue was by dialing the brightness way down to, at most 50%, and I also entered a virtual workspace where there's more even lighting everywhere, rather than having the weird camera looking at my surroundings, so virtual workspaces were definitely a lot easier on the eyes. And then at 1 hour, I had to take a break. It really hurt my eyes, and I had to basically take a break every hour for the rest of the day. I got a little bit more used to it as I started to optimize, lower brightness, virtual workspace, larger text and font on all your browser tabs. But by the end of the day, my eyes hurt a lot, and I had a headache. It really felt like using a desktop monitor from 2005. And so, It turns out reading is very different from playing Beat Saber on this headset. But in conclusion, this concept is far from dead. It's only just the beginning here, and after using it for a while, I'm really optimistic. I think that there is a lot of potential in this concept for using it on whether you're traveling or in a small apartment or just at work and you want multiple monitors. However, the issues I mentioned in this video, some of them were really essential and absolutely made it impossible to use this as a viable display alternative for a laptop or a desktop. And additionally, if they made another version of this that didn't have onboard processing and instead you had to plug into your laptop, I would be happy to do that if it meant lower latency, no glitches, no frame drops, no battery issues, and possibly better resolution by, battery and computing responsibilities being handed over to the laptop. But that's my take on using this as a replacement to your laptop. Unfortunately, not as practical as I hoped, but leave a comment and let me know if you think this is going to be a viable solution in the future. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching. See you next time.